The rooftop shimmered, lights strung like constellations above rows of linen-draped tables, the soft clink of champagne flutes echoing beneath a sky that hadn't yet made up its mind about nightfall. I stood near the edge, Miami's skyline glittering behind me, 1,000 feet of glass and ambition. The MC's voice boomed my name again. Applause. Camera shutters. Congratulations. But not one face I needed was in the crowd. The Maddox family table sat under a pool of amber light. 6 chairs, polished silverware, fresh florals, and an untouched bottle of rose. Empty. I scanned again, slower this time. No Colton. No Virginia. No Drew. My throat tightened against my collar. They're probably stuck in traffic, I told myself. Or maybe something urgent came up. Hospitals. Flights delayed. Anything. Lies dressed in reason. I held the award with both hands, its weight colder than the metal it was made from. I smiled for the cameras like nothing was broken. Because in moments like these, women like me don't shatter, we sparkle. The applause settled. I walked to the mic, a smile practiced to perfection. I barely got past thanking the firm before my gaze swept the far end of the rooftop and froze. Colton, in a perfectly tailored navy suit, sleeves cuffed to reveal the watch I bought him on our 10th anniversary. His hand was resting on someone else's waist. Elara Quinn. Her dress was something I'd once designed a prototype for, sleek, silk, unapologetically young. Her smile was razor sharp, not a flicker of guilt in her eyes as she leaned into Colton. Chin tilted up, claiming her prize. I kept speaking. Something about brand loyalty. Something about legacy. The words were puppets on strings, delivered through a body that didn't belong to me anymore. After the gala, I slipped away into the lounge, the heels I hadn't taken off all evening digging into my arches. The room was quiet. Too quiet. I found the mirror above the bar and leaned in, not to fix my makeup, to breathe. Behind me, their reflection entered. Colton, adjusting Elara's dress strap. Tender, familiar, practiced. She giggled. He whispered something. I didn't move. The mirror didn't just show them, it showed the lie. Months ago, I wrote Elara her first recommendation letter. Told her, stay close, learn everything, and you'll go far. I meant upward, not into my marriage. She looked up. Our eyes met in the glass. She didn't blink. I stood still, watching her not hide. They weren't hiding, I whispered to myself. They were rehearsing. Back in my suite, I took the call scheduled for 9 p.m. sharp. It was always the same Zoom link. Family check-in, every second Thursday. This time, I actually expected them to congratulate me. Virginia clicked on first. Her eyes scanned my face like I was something expired in the fridge. You've been distant lately, she said. No, hello, no, we saw your speech. Just judgment, sugar-coated in concern. Drew came on next. His camera was tilted upward, so I only saw his chin and ceiling fan. He muttered something about being busy and clicked mute. And then Colton. His voice sliced through the screen. Calm, calculated. No one enjoys being around you anymore. Sterling. A blur moved behind him, a shadow crossing the frame. Elara. She adjusted the camera angle for him before walking out, then back in. This time, fully visible. No one reacted. Not even Virginia. Colton continued. You take the air out of every room. The joy. The warmth. It's gone. Colton, I tried, but he raised his hand, silencing me like an unruly employee. I don't sleep with you anymore, he said. I sat back. You repulse me. That was it. Not even a dramatic pause. Just the truth, thrown like a dart into a balloon. And then I saw it all. The nights he came home late. The sudden switch to separate travel plans. The cold side of the bed. The strategic silence. After the call ended, I sat there for a while. No music. No background noise. Just the dim hum of betrayal, curdling into clarity. Then came the vibration. An email from the lead client of our biggest rebrand. "We're reassessing your emotional readiness for the next phase," it read. "Concerns have been raised about optics and consistency." I didn't need to ask who raised them. I stepped onto the balcony, barefoot. The tiles were still warm from the sun. Miami spread out beneath me like a theater set. Bright, distant, fake. "They didn't just skip my celebration," I whispered. "They stole it." I sat down, not to cry, but to see clearly. That was the moment I understood. They weren't disappointed in me. They were threatened by me. My reflection in the glass door stared back. Not broken. Not shaken. Empty chairs don't lie. They don't excuse. They just confirm. I walked back into the suite, peeled off my dress, wiped the foundation from my face, not the tears because there were none. Not tonight. I took off my heels and walked down the hall. Back at the rooftop, I found the table still standing untouched. The placard, Maddox family, fluttered under the breeze. I placed the heels beside the empty chair and left. The next call I made wasn't to cry. It was to freeze everything they thought they owned. The morning after the gala, I woke to silence, not the peaceful kind, but the sharp, surgical quiet that comes after something has been ripped open. My phone buzzed once, twice, and I let it ring out. No more polite alarms. No more illusions of routine. I poured myself black coffee and walked barefoot into my home office. The framed awards on the wall looked less like accomplishments and more like decorations in a room someone else lived in. I pulled out my hard drive, booted the encrypted archive I hadn't touched since we opened the Swiss account. Colton's expense trail was subtle at first. Travel anomalies. Flights to Zurich labeled consulting. Then Alara's name appeared twice, linked to a secondary card under a foundation I never approved. And then there it was, a transfer form, buried among trust documents. Virginia's signature co-signed. The POA used was mine, outdated, digitally marked from a tablet I hadn't touched since 2019. The signature looked clean. Too clean. A copy manipulated and repasted over a live document. The transaction language had been massaged to fall just under federal reporting thresholds. Not illegal, just calculated. I sat back, the leather chair cold against my spine. They weren't siphoning money. They were rewriting the ownership script of my entire legacy. They didn't just want to break me, I whispered. They wanted to reprogram the ledger of my life. It was time. I picked up my encrypted phone, scrolled to a contact marked only as NB. Nolan Briggs, the voice answered, crisp and neutral. "This is Sterling Maddox," I said. "Authenticate me." Biometric security ran through voice print, facial scan, backup passphrase. He didn't flinch. This was protocol, not personal. "What can I do for you, Ms. Maddox?" "I'm revoking all third-party access. Freeze every joint movement. Immediate effect." A pause. "This will halt disbursements to active beneficiaries, including your family trust." "I'm aware." "Colton Maddox will be notified." "Let him be," I said. "This isn't revenge. It's asset hygiene." Another pause. "This move will raise flags. You'll be seen as the aggressor." Then let the truth catch up. The line disconnected, but the shift in balance had already begun. An hour later, a courier arrived. A fat manila envelope, stamped from Colton's legal firm. Emergency motion, questioning my mental capacity to manage high-value holdings. Psychological grounds, unfit due to emotional instability. I almost laughed. That same afternoon, anonymous articles began circulating. Sources close to Sterling Maddox express concern over erratic behavior. 2 clients paused our contracts pending internal review. Then came the knock on my door. A wellness check. 2 uniformed officers, hands soft on their belts, asked if I'd had any thoughts of harming myself. I invited them in. I showed them my emails, the legal motion, the articles, all with timestamps. When they left, I sat down and drafted a cease and desist to the PR firm. Then I hired Dr. May Franklin, a forensic psychologist who once testified against a billionaire tech founder and didn't flinch once on the stand. When they can't argue your numbers, I murmured to myself, they'll target your nerves. The next morning, I walked into a hospital room that smelled of bleach and regret. Virginia lay in the bed, tubes in her nose, eyes too tired to blink quickly. She smiled like nothing had happened. I didn't sit. They told me what you did, she said, voice rasping. You froze everything. Your brother's tuition. My medical fund. What are you thinking, Sterling? I'm thinking I finally chose clarity over comfort. She reached for my hand. I didn't offer it. Elara makes Colton happy, she whispered, like that made it holy. If I'm cruel, I said softly, it's because I finally stopped giving what was never returned. Before I left, I wrote a personal check and handed it to the billing desk. No joint funds, no family accounts, just mine. Outside, Drew waited by the parking lot, hands in his jacket, looking smaller than I remembered. They told me not to talk to you, he said. I wrapped my arms around him anyway. You don't have to pick a side, I said against his shoulder. Just don't lie to yourself. I handed him a sealed envelope. Inside was a notarized document, contingency protocols, asset access only executable if something happened to me. He blinked at it. Why are you giving me this? Because I trust you, and trust doesn't need applause, just action. That evening, I opened my laptop and wrote one sentence to my attorney. It's time to revisit the prenup, Clause 14C. Infidelity asset reallocation. Long overlooked. Now weaponized not in hate, but in justice. I began printing binders. Truth. Contingency. Asset shield. Each one a war plan, not for destruction, but for preservation. By midnight, I walked into my design studio, where the sketches of my next line hung untouched. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. This time, I wasn't salvaging a past. I was scripting a future. This won't end in court. It'll end when they realize I don't need their table. I own the floor beneath it. The morning news broke like the sound of thin glass, cracking under weight. One line across the screen, Maddox Holdings under emergency audit. I didn't flinch. I didn't sip my coffee. I just watched, quietly like I was waiting for a train I'd already seen on the tracks. Within 24 hours of the Swiss freeze, Colton's business accounts were flagged and denied. Vendors withdrew from long-standing contracts. Phone calls stopped being returned. Panic moved through his offices like smoke from a fire no one could locate. I heard from Nolan again, this time with just a clipped message. He tried moving funds through Luxembourg. Rejected. They're watching him now. By afternoon, board members summoned him. By evening, he was ousted. No ceremony, no applause. Just a resignation letter signed under duress, and a vacant office view overlooking the city that no longer listened to his voice. Elara disappeared the same day. Her closet empty. Her scent gone. One file left decrypted on Colton's private drive. For words, I always had contingencies. And yet I didn't celebrate. I sat on my couch, barefoot, knees tucked beneath me, watching the downfall unfold on a muted TV. The screen flickered with images of Colton walking out of his building, flanked by reporters. He didn't speak. His jaw clenched, shoulders hunched, not like a man accused, but like a man unmoored. Destruction doesn't always come with fire. Sometimes it arrives with paperwork and silence. At dusk, there was a buzz at my building. I knew before I looked. I opened the door without a word. He stood there, suit wrinkled, eyes sunken, lips trembling like he had forgotten how to lie. "You won," he whispered. "I lost. Just open the accounts. Please." I didn't move. My arms hung steady at my sides. "You didn't lose to me," I said. "You lost to your own reflection." He dropped to his knees, not in love, in fear, in helplessness, in the unraveling of a man who only knew himself by the control he held. Even wolves don't cry when they're hunted, only when the pack leaves. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't reach to help. "Take what dignity you have left," I said, "and leave." He did. 3 days later, the first news leak appeared. Anonymous files sent to every major financial and business outlet. Encrypted email logs. Wire transfer records. Voicemails of Colton and Elara plotting asset redirection. A pattern of coercion masked as strategic delegation. My name was nowhere in the files. Sterling Maddox, it read, remained entirely off record, uninvolved, invisible. That invisibility became power. Headlines changed tone. Sterling Maddox, the silent architect of self-preservation. Quiet elegance under fire. Brilliance by omission. At my attorney's office, Nolan raised his glass. "You've done what most men couldn't." I smiled. This wasn't a war. It was a correction. Sometimes the truth speaks loudest when no name signs it. Weeks later, in a glass atrium downtown, I stood at a podium. Behind me, a banner, the Maddox Initiative, Financial Advocacy for Women. People clapped, but I waited until the room settled. Then I spoke. They ask why I stayed so long. I ask, why does it scare us more to leave than to lose ourselves? The room was still. In the front row, Drew watched with glassy eyes. Afterward, he approached me backstage. "I was wrong," he whispered. "I thought keeping peace meant keeping quiet." I pulled him close. "We're not our silence, unless we choose to stay there." Virginia didn't come, but she sent a note, handwritten on lined paper. "I may not say it well, but I saw you. I see you now." I placed the letter in a file marked closure, and before the event ended, I announced a scholarship in Elara's name. Not for her, for the girls who would never meet her, but might have walked in her shoes. You cannot reclaim peace by echoing pain. You reclaim it by walking forward unchained. The first light of Sunday slipped across the wooden floors of my new studio. Barefoot again, I stood facing a single frame on the wall. A photo from a coast I had walked alone. Wind tangling my hair, the sea roaring like it had a message. Under it, a caption I had typed and framed myself. I didn't escape the storm. I became the sea. And if you're wondering what became of them, I don't know. I stopped checking.